Hi, this is Jason Kadlik, creator of ActiveWoo. Thank you so much for purchasing the plugin. This tutorial is going to walk through uploading, activating the plugin, and then getting the basic setup done. From there, we'll move on to more advanced settings, and then finally into some of the integrations that ActiveWoo has available. Getting started is as simple as uploading the plugin as you normally would. Note that even though I call the plugin ActiveWoo, the zip file and folder is actually WooCommerce-ActiveCampaign. The reason it's done that way is so that the ActiveWoo plugin file will show up with all of the other WooCommerce plugins that you might have. So install it and then click Activate Plugin. Okay, at this point nothing's really happening, but you can see that we have our main WooCommerce plugin, then here's the WooCommerce ActiveCampaign integration, and here are some other WooCommerce plugins. The default PayPal and Stripe have been installed on my test site here. So the next thing we need to do is activate WooCommerce by putting in our license key. So to do that, we'll go to the WooCommerce settings, and then we are going to click on the integration tab. And here's where we will paste in the WooCommerce license key. This license key should have been shown to you on the thank you page after you purchased ActiveWoo, and it was also emailed to you. So we'll put that in and click Save Changes. And then you'll see if you might also have some of these other notifications, but this is the one you need to look for, which is your license activated successfully. Please click here to load in the settings. If you do that and you are not taken to this page, it is likely that your server or web host has a firewall that is preventing your site from contacting ActiveWoo to validate the license key. So if this step didn't work for you, please contact your web host and let them know that you're trying to activate a plugin and that it's not working. And you might direct them to asking if there is any kind of firewall or any sort of thing that would prevent them from your site from contacting ActiveWoo to validate the license key. Next up, we need to put in the ActiveCampaign API URL and API key. So I've just created this ActiveWoo account here for demonstration purposes, so there's no contacts or anything. This is sort of what it looks like when you first start up. So you go to My Settings in ActiveCampaign, and then you go to Developer. And this is your URL. So we'll copy that and paste that in. And this is the key. So we'll copy that and paste that in. And for now, I'm just going to save those changes. Okay, and you're looking for success. ActiveCampaign is now connected and your settings have been saved. Now once again, if this did not happen at this step for you, then it is likely that your web host has some kind of firewall and prevented your site from contacting ActiveCampaign. So if this part didn't work for you, please contact your web host, or you might look into switching web hosts to something more dedicated to WooCommerce. Something like WP Engine is what I host ActiveWoo.com on. I host many of my client sites there, and recommend it highly. If these things aren't working for you, I would recommend maybe setting up a test site at WP Engine or something similar, or again contact your web host because you likely have a firewall issue there. So now that those are set up, you are literally ready to start using ActiveWoo. If you did nothing else than just this much of the video, I will now demonstrate what will happen as people purchase your products. So here I've got a test store set up, and I've just created this simple product. And let's jump back really quick and look at this product setup. So here we go into our products. Here's our simple products, and you can see that the SKU is set as AW-simple. So I'm going to apply a coupon code here. This is a great way to test. If you set up when you set up your site to do testing, just create a coupon that creates a 100% cart discount. Proceed to checkout, and then we'll put in our name and everything. Let's go with this one here. Okay, so now I can just I've put in my address. We'll go ahead and place order. Okay, the order is now created, and we're all set to check out the sync that happened. So the first place that we can check the sync is in the orders history here in WooCommerce. So there's the order that just happened, and you'll see that we've got ActiveCampaign sync details, and you can see that the sync status is that this order has been synced to contact ID. So let's take a look at that. So I'm going to copy that URL, and we're going to open it over here where I'm logged into ActiveCampaign. Now, because I'm using a test version of ActiveCampaign, they have enabled all the bells and whistles, including the CRM stuff. It works with the CRM, it also works without the CRM. So if you just have the basic version of ActiveCampaign, it works just fine. But I'll walk you through what you should expect to see. The first is you should see a note added, and this will tell you what order number it was, and this will give you a link from ActiveCampaign back to your WooCommerce setup. So if you wanted to jump back and look at that order details, you can simply do that right from the order notes, from the note details. And so for each order that's placed, you'll see a new note here in the contact note detail list. So what happens when you have no other settings set is the contact is either created or updated, and a tag is added where the tag is the same as the SKU. So you remember how I showed you that the SKU for our simple product is AW simple. So that is the tag that is added to our contact by default, AW simple. So whatever the SKU is, that is the tag. And again, that's doing nothing other than putting in your ActiveCampaign API credentials. So you put in your ActiveCampaign API credentials and hit save and do nothing else. Then every time a purchase happens, a contact will either be created or updated. Whatever you've got set here as the SKU will then be added to their record in ActiveCampaign. So a contact will either be added or updated. The SKU will be created as a tag, and a note will be added. And so what you can do with this is you can then, for example, in a future email blast, you could email everybody who had purchased this product, the AW Simple product, which is incredibly useful if you want to talk to your different contacts in different ways. If you wanted to, for example, do a cross-sell where everyone who bought the Simple product, maybe you want to upsell them or cross-sell them the more expensive product. Now you can find everybody who has the Simple product, and also you could find everyone who has the Simple product as having been purchased, but does not yet, let's say, have some other product. So you can use your tags to do it that way. And the way that Active works is incredibly simple. It just takes, by default, whatever your SKU is, and it uses that as the tag. Now from there, we can do things a little bit more complex. So let's jump into some of the other features. And let's start by, once again, going to our settings and integration and the ActiveCampaign WooCommerce settings tab. So something else that we might want to do is add a default tag. What this does, and I'm just going to call this one customer, and hit save changes. So by adding a default tag, we'll now sync two tags. So let's go ahead and jump back to our test customer here, and we're going to leave this tag on, and we're going to buy this product again. Okay, so we're placing that order, and now when I reload this contact, we'll have a new tag here, which is the default tag. So for example, customer. This is really, really useful if you want to set a tag every time a purchase happens, regardless of what product they bought. So for example, if you wanted to add everyone who purchases to your customer's email list, this would be the way to do that. So the first time they make a purchase and every time they make a purchase, the customer tag will be added. Now if the contact already has the customer tag, then obviously no sort of duplicate tag is created. As you can see here, I bought the same product, so I still have the AW simple tag that didn't get re-added. It's already there, but the customer tag was now added on to this contact. You can also see that a new note was added to this contact record. So now you can see that there have been 2 purchases here. So that is what the default tag does. Now let's step to looking at, before we jump into the product categories and coupons and all these other things, let's take a look at how some different products work with ActiveWoo. So up till now we've just looked at a simple product. Let's take a look at a variable product and how variable products work with ActiveWoo. Now a variable product is something like a t-shirt where you might have small, medium, and large. So here we've got some test variable products where we've got small, medium, and large. And if we look at the details of each of these, you can see I've got a SKU set with specific SKUs per variation. And by default, WooCommerce doesn't necessarily do this. By default, WooCommerce will just set one one SKU for the entire product, regardless if a small, medium, or large, or whatever your variations are. But in this case, I've set up a different SKU to each variation. So I'm going to go buy that now, and we'll see how that works. And so here you can see there's no price yet, because again, you can set different prices depending on what variations get chosen. Alright, so we'll add that to the cart. And so I'm buying the small version of this. And again, I'm going to zero out the price so I can just quickly check out. And completing the purchase. So let's now hop over into ActiveCampaign and see how the tags are set now. So now you can see that, so this was my first purchase, which was the AW Simple product. Here's the purchase I just did. So the main SKU for the product is added. So that was the AW variable, as well as the variation that I purchased. And of course, the default tag are now all added here. And once again, here you can see my most recent order is order number 19 there. You also see that the email, the name, the billing name, billing email, and billing phone number are synced to the contact record at this point. Next up, let's take a look at enabling syncing the product category and the product tags. So I'm going to select those two and turn these two on and hit Save Changes. Okay, here I have created a product. The SKU is AW cat and tag, and you can see that I've got it in a category called example or X product category, and I've given it a tag, example product tag. And I've added this to the cart already, so we'll go ahead and check out. Okay, let's look at the tags that are synced now. Okay, so here's the SKU of the product, which was AW cat and tag. And you can also now see that a tag X product cat and X product tag were synced. So let's take a closer look at that product. So I know it gets a little confusing when we talk about ActiveCampaign tags and product tags, but the idea is simple. If you create a category over here and have that box ticked, and by the way, it also works with subcategories. So if we create a subcategory, subcat like that, and we set it up like that, then both of these categories will become tags. So if this product is assigned to both or assigned to this subcategory, then the parent category and subcategory will be added as tags, as well as whatever tags are down here. Now the reason you might want to do something like this is, let's say that you had a clothing store and you sold, you have lots of different shoes, and you can see that someone bought a specific kind of shoe, but also you want to just flag that they have bought shoes in general. And then you could check, let's say with a timer of about 24 hours in ActiveCampaign, you could then check to see if they have any purchases from the product category of socks. So if they bought shoes but didn't buy socks, then you could send an email to them letting them know, hey, hope you're enjoying your new shoes. By the way, for first-time shoe buyers, we offer this crazy discount on socks. Please click here and get that discount, right? So you could use a category style tag or a product tag to let your system know that somebody has bought a certain kind of product. Or another example would be if they bought any kind of laptop, you might want to sell them a laptop bag. If you had laptops of different sizes and different brands, and different laptop bags match those different brands, then again that would be another excellent use of product category, so that you could say, okay, well, they've bought an Apple laptop, and the subcategory would be the AirBook, so you want to maybe sell them a smaller laptop bag. If they have purchased the product in the laptop category and then specifically have the SKU of the MacBook AirBook, then you could send them over to a campaign which would then also check to see if they have any purchases from the laptop bag category, and if they do not have a laptop bag category, then you know that they've only purchased the laptop, they have not yet purchased a laptop bag. Then you send that email, hey, check out our great laptop bags. So that is why you might want to use the product categories and product tags as well as just the SKU. Next up is the sync coupons. So if we enable this, then as you would expect from these other checkboxes, if somebody uses a coupon when they check out, then that coupon will also be added as a tag to their contact record. Let's check it out. So in this case, I'm just going to buy that same simple product that I purchased in the past. And once again, I'm going to use the little test coupon I've set up to zero out the price. And let's look at the new tag added. So now there's a new tag of test because I've used the test coupon when checking out. So up till now you can see that the rest of the billing address information, it's not set yet. And so what we're going to do is we are going to now sync this billing info as well as tags, and we'll do that by ticking the add custom fields for billing info and syncs the most recent order info into those fields. Oops. Okay. So now you can see the billing address has been synced in. And just remember, as the same contact continues to make purchases, whatever their most recent billing address is what's going to get synced in here. So if they buy and there's a new phone number, then this phone number will be overwritten with whatever is the new purchase. Also note that this will always be the billing, and that's why these are labeled as billing address and billing city. Your shopping cart may also allow for a shipping address, but we always save the billing so that it's your actual customer and not if the customer is buying something and then, let's say, shipping it to a relative or shipping it as a gift. So we're only saving the billing contact information. So that wraps up most of the tagging fields that we have. Next, we have some other custom fields that can be added to ActiveCampaign to track additional data. So this one is the customer revenue field. And so I'm just going to call this one total revenue. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a custom field inside of ActiveCampaign called total revenue. And as the customers make purchase, it's going to accrue the total number or the total amount that customer has spent on the shop. So now, of course, I can't continue to use the coupon because then the revenue will always end up as 0. So we'll go ahead and do a regular purchase here. Now, one way that you might want to test this is using something like direct bank transfer. Otherwise, you'll need a sandbox set up with your credit cards that you can use the fake credit card. But for now, I'm just going to use a direct bank transfer. And there's a couple extra steps, but it's good to show you this to explain a little bit more about when and how ActiveWoo actually fires the sync. So the order has been received now, but the payment has not yet been received. So let me explain a little bit about what that means. So if we check out our orders here, first up you can see that a lot of these orders are just marked as processing, and this is the default behavior for WooCommerce, especially if it expects that you're going to be shipping products out. Then they'll usually be in the processing status until you've shipped it, and then you mark them as complete. So ActiveWoo actually fires, it's called the payment received, and it's not something that is a status in WooCommerce per se. It's actually more behind the scenes. There is a specific function that WooCommerce has which lets plugins like ActiveWoo know that WooCommerce has successfully received payment, or in the case of a $0 purchase like a coupon, there is no payment necessary, and so the payment received kind of flows through anyway. Now here you can see that this order is on hold because no payment has yet been received, and so you can see that the ActiveCampaign sync details say not synced. So in a case like this, one way that you can force an order to sync, and also to test things out, you can just click Add Order and then add your order through the admin panel to test things out. So I'm going to change this order status from on hold to completed, and by doing so I will force ActiveWoo to sync this order. Regardless of whether or not the payment has been synced or not, you can now see that, that this is synced. So let's take a look in ActiveCampaign and check out our total revenue field. So you can see now just below the billing, total revenue field is now showing, and 1 is the value there. Now ActiveCampaign does not necessarily allow for a currency field, so this number is just a number field. So whether your store is set up in US dollars, Canadian dollars, British pounds, Australian dollars, it doesn't matter the currency. Also, if you have a plugin which allows your store to accept and transact in different currencies, unfortunately the total revenue field is just going to total up whatever the amount total was paid by the end customer, regardless of what currency was used. But this function is really, really useful if you want to send some kind of VIP email or trigger an email to your internal staff to reach out to somebody if they've spent over a certain dollar amount, or if there's a certain amount of time. So again, starting to use some of these concepts in tandem, you might use your default tag customer to start a timer in ActiveCampaign and say, okay, as soon as someone acquires their customer tag, that's how we know that they've made their first purchase. Let's now wait, let's say 3 months, and let's check this total revenue number. If the total revenue is over a certain amount, then let's send them a VIP email thanking them for their business, and maybe offering them something special. If the number is under a certain amount, then you'll know to maybe encourage them in a different way. So that's a nice way to use two of these features in conjunction with one another. Following up on that notion, rather than using a date timer in ActiveCampaign, you could also check against the date of their last order. So we'll call this one last order date. And these were left as free text fields, just so that if you're working in a non-English language, you can set these to be whatever you want or whatever makes sense to you. So we'll go ahead and save that. So when we reload our contact here, you'll see that the last order date field is now added. So when we do our next purchase, the date is going to get filled in here. All right, once again, I'm going to use this direct bank transfer method so that we can show both the last date and also the revenue accruing. So here's that order, and when we mark things completed, then we do assume that the amount has been received, and so that will sync. And now let's check out. So last order date, 11/27. So you can see currently this is going to format, I believe, in a US style where it's month, date, year. But that might be a local setting to your ActiveCampaign, however that's set up. But for us, for me, anyhow, this is getting set as month, date, year. And now you can see that the total revenue has increased by 1 because I've now purchased a $1 product twice. Next up on this is if you want to track the total number of orders. So if you click Track Total Number of Orders and then Save Changes, this adds a total orders placed, and I guess I have to apologize that they're not all standardized. This one was done with a checkbox rather than with a make your own label, and partly that was just to kind of lower the overhead a little bit. And so if that's a big deal, I'm always open to feedback and to making changes, but for now I just made that a simple tick box rather than something where you set your own label. Anyhow, this is going to work as you would expect. Each time an order is created, then this number is going to sync. Now I'm not going to place an order just yet because I want to show you one of the other features on the same panel. So right below this we have this Sync All Orders button. And when we push this, this will do a historic order sync, so all of the orders that haven't yet synced will sync up into ActiveCampaign. Now, clicking this button does require that you have a server that has a couple of things. One is enough memory to be running WooCommerce, and you can find out if your server is a good fit for WooCommerce by going to the system status page. Here's where you're going to see some of the basic things like how much memory and things have been allocated on your server. So make sure that you have as many green checks here as possible. Also, again, you might have to contact your web host and ask them to increase the memory limit. So basically, when you click sync all orders, what's going to happen is in the background, we're going to try to use as much of the server memory as we can to run each order through, which requires a couple of API calls to ActiveCampaign back and forth, and then also just the server processing each order, going through one at a time. So a couple things. One is if your computer doesn't have sufficient memory to process this, then you could click this button and nothing will happen. If that's the case, you really are on an underpowered server to run an e-commerce site, and I would highly recommend considering moving your web host to a more robust e-commerce ready web host. Again, WP Engine is my top recommendation. If you don't want to move web hosts, then you contact your web host and at least ask them to increase the something called kill script, or a script timeout limit, or any kind of timeout, because basically the server needs enough time to run at least one order through start to finish. It needs to let the sync process run start to finish in order so that it can move to the next one. If your site is only able to process one order at a time, it could take a very, very long time to process a couple thousand back orders. If you decide and discover that things aren't working as you'd like them, then you can click the cancel syncing orders button and it will stop the sync. If you're going to sync your past orders, something else you should be very, very careful of is I would run one test order through, as I've been demoing so far. Check to see what, if any, emails have been sent out, because what will happen is if you sync all the orders to ActiveCampaign, that will appear like the order just happened right now. So those tags will get applied in the present moment. If those tags are hooked onto campaigns which then send out emails, then you might have customers who haven't purchased anything in months or years getting, thank you for being a customer emails, and that might cause them to be concerned that their privacy has been violated, or that someone has stolen their card. Because of them, the email might make them feel that they've just made a purchase. So be very, very careful when using the sync all orders. Make sure, I would recommend that you do not send, or that you have everything set up so that no emails are sent out. Run that through, run a test purchase through to make sure that no emails are getting sent out. Then run your sync, and then what you might want to do is send out a couple broadcast emails to catch people up, and then hook up all your campaigns sort of on a go-forward basis. Something else that you can do, however, is, for example, in this case, we've synced all of our orders, everything's all synced up, but we have enabled some new features. For example, we now want to track the total number of orders, and we have one particular customer who has already ordered a bunch of times, and I'd like this total order number to reflect that. So I'm going to go ahead and click resync all, which means it's going to ignore, so I should back up and say, when you do sync all orders, it's only going to be looking to sync orders that are either in the processing status or are in the completed status. If something is on hold, or if the payment wasn't received, then it's going to get skipped. Also, if you click sync all orders, it's only going to sync orders that have not yet been synced. And ActiveWoo knows which orders have been synced and which orders have not yet been synced by literally, it looks at this sync status message. And so if it finds that there is a sync status message in here, then it knows to skip this order and it will not sync it when you click the sync all orders. However, if you click the resync all checkbox, then ActiveWoo will ignore what is in the sync status and it will resync this anyway. And so when you do that, and so we'll go ahead and we'll save changes. So you have to first click the resync all and then click the sync all orders. And now it'll be ignored. And you can see here that we have a progress loading. And once it starts to sync, you'll notice that it goes to a progress, and now this is showing you more or less real time how many orders have been synced and the percentage of how complete your sync is. So we'll go ahead and wait for that to finish up. And I've been pausing the video a little bit, but this is a pretty fast setup, and you can see it still takes a little bit of time. And again, some of that is limited to the speed at which we can transact with the ActiveCampaign API and a couple of the API calls that are required when we start syncing all the data. So once it's done, it'll then go back to a loading, and we'll let you know that it has resynced everything. And we can now check also in ActiveCampaign. Remember, we've only been purchasing using the one contact, and a couple things. One is you can see now that the total orders placed has been increased to 8, and total revenue has also actually gone up more than it should have. So again, when it does the resync, it's always just going to add to the fields that are already here, so that would also include total placed orders. So if you're going to do a resync, just know that you might have to find all contacts and remove this field first, otherwise you might sort of accidentally update some of these fields. So again, when I ran the resync all orders, I didn't first zero this number out, and so because of that, it has sort of erroneously added a little bit more to that than should have. That should have stayed at 2, whereas this went up to 8 because we've done a bunch of purchases using the coupon, which allowed us to purchase with $0. So that's something else to be aware of, is that when you do run the resync all, it doesn't zero out the contacts as it goes through. It is just going to add to them at this point. So now that covers all the main settings on our ActiveCampaign WooCommerce tab. So from here, and that's definitely a lot to take in. So you might want to just get this much set up first and start testing that in your store before you jump into more of the advanced settings. But for those of you who want to get advanced, let's do it right now. So clicking on to the advanced settings, we have a bunch of additional tags and settings. The first is a SKU prefix, and so we might call this anything we want. And the reason to use this is you can see in my test setup, I have been prefixing all of my SKUs with AW-. And so when I have to do a tag search, you can see that as I type in AW, it automatically finds all of my SKUs that relate to my products. Now, if you've already set up all your products and all your SKUs don't follow a similar convention where every SKU begins with the same letter combination, this is how you can force that to happen. So for example, if we wanted to create the SKU prefix as products, we're going to do that here, and then I'll show you how that works. Okay, so I've just made a purchase of the AW Simple, and now you can see that my SKU prefixed is now followed by a hyphen, and then the SKU follows. So before we enabled this feature where we have a SKU prefix, which is just product, in ActiveCampaign, just the SKU was set, AW Simple, but now that we have a prefix, the prefix is set as the tag, so product dash AW Simple. So the dash is already set automatically. So if you wanted product dash something, then what you set in your settings is just product. So product becomes product dash whatever your SKU is. Okay, the next item up is the ability to store product links for customer reviews. This one's a little bit complex, so let me start off by describing the user request that created this feature. So one thing I love to do is to get feedback from people who are actually using ActiveWoo, and they ask me if it will do different things that would help their business. And if it's something that can help everybody who uses ActiveWoo, then I put it into a queue of things to get built, and I continue to add in features that have been requested. I thought this was a really useful one, which was if somebody buys one or more products, then you might want to shoot them an email with a link back to that product page to encourage them to leave a review. So thank you so much for buying my Simple product. Here's a link back to Simple product. We'd love it if you leave a review for us on the site. And so this feature enables that. So the way that it works is, first of all, you have to check this box and then save changes. And when you do that, it's going to create one custom field for the link. If you set this to 2, then what it's going to do is create 2 custom fields, and it's going to create up to 5 custom fields. Because the way that this works is every time somebody purchases something, we're just setting custom fields over in ActiveCampaign. But every time they purchase, these fields have to get reset. And so what we're doing is we're allowing up to 5 items in the cart. So most of the time I think that customers come through, they probably just put one thing in the cart at a time, or you might be using different ways to bundle things, in which case again it's still going to mostly end up as like one product in the cart. But some of the other bundled products work slightly differently and might send in the product URL slightly differently. So anyhow, it would be a little bit hard to email them and ask them to leave more than 5 reviews, I felt. So you can save up to 5 URLs at a time, and the 5 URLs are saved on a per purchase basis. So I will explain what that means now by setting this number all the way up to the maximum of 5, and then I'm going to save changes here. So jump over to ActiveCampaign and I'll show you what the setup is. So now just below our total orders placed, you can see that I have product URLs 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so when I make a purchase, if I only purchase one thing in the cart, what it's going to happen is it's going to fill in the product 1 URL, and it's going to be fill it in such that later in a campaign I could use that URL as a merge field. So I could say, hey, thank you so much for buying whatever product it is, and I could use the URL or the tag to say if they bought my simple product, then fill in the product URL here. Some kind of way, shape, or form. Again, these are advanced features. If this is all getting too confusing or overwhelming, please don't use them. But if it makes sense to you, then that's why I put it on the Advanced Users tab, to allow advanced users to get into some more kind of complicated after purchase marketing. So I'll do my best to kind of explain how this all works. But the key concept here is that if I buy a simple product on one pass through the cart, then or any product really, then that's going to fill in this URL. If I go back through, if the same customer using the same email address goes back through the cart and makes another purchase, it's just going to rewrite over this product 1 URL. So in other words, these product URLs get reset every purchase. So if the customer comes through and buys 5 things in the cart, all 5 URLs are going to be filled up here. And then let's say that a day later they come back through and they buy just one thing in the cart, then there's only going to be one product URL left, and product URLs 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be deleted at that point. So we're only ever storing the last URL or URLs from a given purchase. So let me go ahead and now try a live demo of that. So we've got these 2 products in the cart, and I'm going to check out and purchase both of these. Okay, so there's the order going through, and now let's update, and we're going to have a product URL set in both the 1 and 2 field positions here. So there we go. There's the product 1, there's product 2. And remember, 3, 4, and 5 are empty because I only had 2 products in my cart at the time of checkout. Now what I'm explaining is if I go back and I purchase just one of these products, then it's not going to save both. It's only going to save my last purchase. So we'll add this to the cart and check out. And so remember, my last purchase had these 2. My most recent purchase just had 1 product in the cart. So at this point, it's going to reset those 4 fields, and it's only going to remember what was my last purchase. And so in this case, again, just that 1 product was in there. And this is so that if someone's kind of revisiting your store across multiple days, your campaign should be set up to use things like campaign loops and things like the default customer tag to figure out sort of what was the most recent purchase, and then always be emailing people asking them, especially if you have something like a date timer. So you may, if you maybe lag 3 or 4 days between the purchase and when you send this email, you would want to set up some kind of campaign loop to make sure that you're only ever emailing them about their last purchase, and you're only going to then fill in, hey, and the other way to do that if you wanted to keep it very simple would be to leave the outgoing email very generic, to say, we're so happy that you're a customer of ours. We really believe that if you want to help spread news about our product to your friends, leaving a review is a great way to do that. Please click below and leave a review, right? And if you keep it very generic like that, then you can actually list all the different URLs right below that. Please click below. You don't say please click the link or links. You could just say please click below. Then it would, and then do your merge fields, and then it would give them up to 5. The up to 5 products that they may have had in their cart. Again, if they check out with more than 5 products, you would just show 5 of the products that were in their cart. So that is the store product reviews. Now, if you reset this back to 1, because you think, you know what, I only really would just try to get them to do 1 at a time, note that it's a non-destructive thing. So it's still going to leave in your ActiveCampaign all 5 fields. You'd have to go into ActiveCampaign at this point and delete out those extra fields. So just be careful when you're setting this up. Think through how you want to use it and how many URLs you'd like to save. Next up, this is a very requested feature, which is to enable a newsletter subscribe checkbox. And what this does is so I'll just tick this box for now and then hit Save Changes, and I can show you what this does when people are checking out in your shop. Alright, so let's view the cart and let's go to the checkout, and you'll see now that at the bottom we have a subscribe to newsletter checkbox. So we have a bunch of settings that control how this is labeled and then how the tags are applied inside of ActiveCampaign. So let's take a look at those settings now. So the first is the label that shows, because again your site may not be in English, or you might not call your newsletter the newsletter. So you might want to say subscribe to our premium discounts, something like that. And so if we save that as a change there, then when we go back to our cart, instead of subscribe to newsletter, now it says subscribe to our premium discounts or premium discount emails, whatever that might be. That's your first setting. Your next setting is what tag should be applied. If someone checks out and leaves this checkbox ticked, then this is the tag that will be applied on their checkout. So let's go ahead and check out now, and we'll see how that gets filled in. So now we have an additional tag, which is subscribed via checkout. Again, if you wanted your tag to say something else, you would change that here in this field. Now, what happens if that same customer comes back and decides, hey, I don't actually want to be subscribed to this newsletter? Maybe they don't even remember signing up. Let's say that they purchase something and then they go right back to your store and they buy something else. And on that second time through the purchase, they realize, oh, I don't even remember having seen that checkbox, but I don't want to be on. I don't want the premium discounts. I'm going to uncheck that box. Okay, so they're here and they go, oh, you know what? I don't want to be on this premium discounts thing after all, so I'm going to go ahead and place my order like that. So ActiveWoo is not destructive with tags. It will always add tags, but it won't remove tags from a customer. So that's sort of one of the concepts of ActiveWoo, is that it's only ever going to be adding tags to the contact record. It won't ever subtract tags off of the contact record. So in this case, you can see that the contact has both subscribed via checkout and unsubscribed via checkout tags. And again, if you're going to send things out, or you could always use this tag or be looking for this tag to make sure that you're only emailing to people on your, if you were using this to create a list, like a subscribed via checkout list or a customer list, you would then check to make sure that you're only emailing to people who do not have this tag here, which is where you set this here. Newsletter tag if user does not subscribe. Now the final setting on the subscribe to newsletter feature is whether this checkbox is ticked by default when they arrive at the checkout page. And so what that means is if we go to the checkout page, should the subscribe to newsletter checkbox be automatically checked or not? So by default, it will automatically be checked. When they land on the checkout page, you can see that we are assuming they want to be subscribed, and so this is already checked. Now, if that's not how you want to run your marketing, then the way to turn that off is to deselect this checkbox and then save changes. And then when the checkout page loads, by default, this box will not be checked. So now we're arriving at this page again, the checkout page, and here it is not checked by default. So they will have to check that box in order to be added to your list. Now also, this still works the same way, meaning if you have this feature enabled and you leave it unselected by default, that means that every single person who checks out and does not click this box will get the unsubscribed via checkout tag added. So it's something to be aware of there, meaning, so if I'm a brand new customer, and let's demo this now just so it makes sense. So let's go ahead and call this a new customer. Alright, so we're a new customer. This email was never purchased before it. We're going to leave that unchecked and we'll place order here. Now we can do a quick search for this new customer. And you will see that the unsubscribed via checkout tag was added. So again, anybody who goes through the checkout, when you have this enabled, and you can decide how you want to handle that as it applies to the marketing of your business. If that was it was really an explicit opt-out, when they went through, if they subscribe to your list via an opt-in form somewhere, and then they go through your list and they leave that box unchecked, you have to determine the business rules that are appropriate for your business. Does that mean they actually just didn't see that field and you should leave them subscribed, or does that mean they saw the field and now they want to be unsubscribed? So again, you can use things like your default tag, or to cause an email that sends out that says, hey, we noticed you made a purchase and didn't select to stay on our newsletter. Do you still want to be on our newsletter, yes or no? It would be one way to solve that. Or the other one would be to have a different tag that says, well, to have a more of like a hierarchy of tags. If they opted in through an opt-in form, that sort of trumps if they're going to be, if they also have this unsubscribed via checkout. So when you're sending out a broadcast, you can say stuff like, if they have the opt-in tag and they have the unsubscribed via checkout tag, then we're going to go with they're opted in, send them the email. So that's something that you could set up and run that logic that way. So that is how that feature works, and that takes us to the end of what's happening on our Advanced Settings tab. Next up is the brand new Advanced Recover Cart. For those of you who have been customers of ActiveCampaign before November of 2016, this worked pretty differently than the way it now works. So this part is really exciting. It's totally improved about how this is working. So up till now, you've noticed that and by the way, I'm using the kind of the stock WooCommerce theme. So this is what the checkout looks like. You've seen it a couple times already, but now let's just actually take a look at it. And you'll notice that when you arrive at the checkout page, you have the billing details and all that kind of stuff, and this 2-column layout. So the first thing that enabling the cart recovery does is it does change the layout of the checkout field. And what it does is it creates a field called contact info, where someone now enters their first name, last name, and email address, then they click next to move on to the billing details and then to the confirm order step. So it makes it look like the checkout is kind of a multi-step process. It reduces the number of fields they see when they arrive at the checkout, which should actually increase the amount of people who complete your checkout, because many marketing experts have tested and shown that little micro commitments along the way actually improve conversion. There's also a marketing wisdom that say the more clicks you put between here and there means the less sales you make. That is true in some circumstances, but in many cases when you're looking at conversions, busy fingers get more conversions, and so micro commitments. So when someone looks at a big commitment like, oh man, I have to type up all this information, I'm really pressed on time, instead if you show them a short number of fields to fill out, so in this case we'll just do like this, and then click next. Now we're going to load in all the billing details. and now they don't have to enter their name and email. They can just finish up putting in their phone and the rest of the billing info and then check out. So in the meantime, what's happened on the back end is we've created some tags and set those tags on our test user. So right now, we've added this tag right here, these two tags, AW and AWRC. So AWRC stands for ActiveWoo Recover Cart, and that's because we've only now just added or enabled the cart recovery. And by default, we add this AWRC tag. This is the prefix that gets added. And so if all you do is enable cart recovery, then you'll get everything I've showed you thus far. And also, we now set, we also add this cart recovery URL, and then we fill that cart recovery URL in with a special URL, which you can give in a merge field that does some pretty cool stuff. So let's check that. All right, so remember at this point, we have a customer who started the checkout but hasn't finished. All right, so I'm just going to leave this where it is, but remember we just had the simple product in our cart here. So let's say that we use this to send an email back to this customer to say, hey, we noticed you got busy or something happened and you didn't complete your checkout. Here's a link so that you can go ahead and complete that checkout. Now let's say that your customer opens that link in a different device, so or a different browser. In this case, when they click that URL, it's going to actually create the cart for them, so that now they can just click proceed to checkout. So you could also give them something like a coupon to use on the checkout page to help encourage them to finish the checkout this time, or if they maybe had something wrong with their checkout and they had too many items in and they didn't quite know how to edit from the checkout page and so they just bailed, you can now use this cart recovery URL. The other thing that's really nice about this cart recovery URL is, let's say that, so something else that you should know about WooCommerce is WooCommerce kind of has its own slightly abandoned cart setup by default, and that is it sets a cookie and actually remembers what's in a customer's cart. So if I do something like this and I add this to the cart, okay, and then I were to, if I'm going to quit my browser here and then open it back up again, you can see that it still knows I've got that in my cart. One of the challenges that Recover Carts have is to know which cart to use, the one that I'm emailing you about or the one that's now stored in your browser. ActiveWoo chooses to use the one that you have information on, which is, we know that it was that they had the simple product in their cart at that time, which I'll explain in just a second. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually remove whatever was currently in their browser cookied cart, and we're going to put in the one that was in the cart when they were at the checkout point. So what I just did, you'll see that if I was that user, so remember, I'll try to demo that one time again very quickly. If I was kind of shopping around on my phone, right, and never had quite made it to, let's say, yeah, so now let's say I had 3 of these in my cart, all right, and I never quite managed to make it to the stage where I put in my name and my email. I'm on my phone, okay, so I was on my desktop, I put in my name, last name, email, hit next, and then I stopped browsing. I get an email, I check that email on my phone, and let's say that this is my phone browser, and I click the link that you send me, which is this one here. What it's going to do is it's going to just wipe out whatever was in my cart, if anything was in there at all, and then it's going to rebuild what was in there when I abandoned cart and the information was synced into ActiveWoo. So what that means is I can just look at this. Oh yeah, that's right, I just had that one product, so it doesn't by accident, increase the quantity. It's just exactly as it was, and now I can go proceed to checkout again, and then start the process over again and finish up the checkout. So now let's talk about how you might want to set up a campaign to handle how this is done. And for this, I can actually show you how I've got this set up for ActiveWoo. Before I do that, let's actually cover the rest of the settings, and then I'll take you into ActiveCampaign and show you an example of how how I set up the campaign on the ActiveCampaign side to move people to different lists to make sure that I don't email abandoned carts to folks who actually have finished their checkout. Okay, so the next setting is, and this is one I highly recommend that you do use, which is that you check this box at least, and this is going to tell you which product they purchased. If not, you can simply write it. If you leave this unchecked, then what you're going to do is write a very generic email. So no matter what product or products they had in their cart, you might just want to say, hey, did life get in the way? Please click the link below to complete your purchase, and if you'd like, use this complete my purchase discount code to make sure that you get the best deal possible, whatever that might be, right? And then you don't even need to know what products they had in their cart. So if you did nothing else and just check this and leave this as is, then what you'll do is you'll create a campaign in ActiveCampaign that says if somebody has this AW-RC tag added and they haven't completed a purchase within, let's say, an hour, then we're going to fire off an email. We're going to put that merge field in there that gives them a link back to their cart and maybe give them a promo code that they can also type in. They'll go to the cart page, proceed to checkout, finish up, and that's great. Now, if you want to give them different emails depending on what product or products were in their cart, then you want to check this box. This is going to give you a specific tag for every product that was in their cart when the cart was abandoned. It's very similar to how it normally works when a SKU is added. Similarly, if you wanted it to write an email that's applied differently, so let's say again, if they bought shoes and an abandoned cart and you have a shoes category, then okay, I want to know, this is saying I want to know specifically what product or products were in the cart when they abandoned. This is also what product categories were those products in when they abandoned, and also what product tags were those products in when the cart was abandoned. So that's what those checkboxes do. Now, next up is the labeling of the checkout fields. So I know that not everybody has a store that is in English, so if you want to change these to other things, including other languages, then the way that you do that is with the contact label. So this starts off with contact info. So you could just change this, for example, to start here. Or here, let me show it to you this way. So let's say we wanted to change this to 1 contact info. That's going to change that label there. And so again, if you wanted to translate that, you'd put in your translation there. Next would be something like, first name. So you could do like primero nombre. So here's where you can start changing all those things, and including the next button, billing details, contact details. So those are all done in these. So the billing details, so we can set that to like 2 and then 3, like that. And so that's these down here. So now I've updated those, and then we can also change the label on that button from next to, we can, for now, let's just call it proceed to step 2. Something like that. So you can have control over what all these things say by changing the labels there. Okay, so now let's make a purchase. Now that we've got these additional items checked, let's go ahead and make a purchase. Oh yeah, we have something in the cart already. So let's go to checkout. Okay, I've now started and completed a checkout using all of the settings, and the email address that I used was this one here. So we'll do a search for RC at ActiveCampaign. Oh, at Crazy Effective, sorry. Okay. So remember, the purchase was both started and completed by this user. So the first tag that got added was the generic AW-RC. This means they started the recover cart process. The simple product was in the cart when they started it, Then they completed the purchase, so we got the customer tag, and then we got the product AW simple and the test. Okay, so the product that I just purchased was the simple one, and that product did not have a product category or product tag set, so I'll go ahead and do that really quickly to show you those tags. Okay, here we go. So as soon as we click that proceed to step 2, that's actually the moment that the sync happens. So let's take another look at the same contact. Now remember, ActiveWoo is only additive. It never removes tags, it only adds them. And so again, that's why it's expected that the AW-RC tag is still here, and remember this product was in the cat and tag category, so now that's prefixed by AW-RC to differentiate that product going through the cart in the recover cart phase versus having been purchase completed, right? And same thing with the example product tag. So here's the main SKU, AW-RC, AW cat and tag. That's the product that I'm right in the process of purchasing right now. So first we get the tag that okay, someone's in the purchase process. Next up, this is the this is currently the only product in my cart, but if I had multiple products in my cart, then multiple tags would be added, all with the prefix of AW_RC. Now you can change that. If you don't want AW-RC as your prefix, you could change this to whatever you'd like it to be. But you do need to make sure that some value is in here, otherwise things won't work. So that's why AW-RC has been defaulted in for you. Okay. So next up is that particular product, cat and tag, had a product tag called AW-RC example, and it also has a tag which was product cat, so that's example product cat and example product tag, both prefixed by AW-RC. And so all those tags have been added. Now, when this customer completes the purchase, these tags are not removed by default, so it's up to us to set up automations that will remove these tags for us when they complete those purchases. So again, that's why all of these are left up to you, because the more tags you apply, the more tags you need to remove in automations, and the sort of more complex you make things. So again, this doesn't need to be that complicated. You can make it really, really simple. Just enable cart recovery and do nothing else. And anytime that the AW-RC tag is applied, set a timer and then wait, and then if they haven't completed their purchase, send the URL out to them. So let's take a look at how exactly we do that. So this is the simplest way to set up an abandoned cart campaign in ActiveCampaign. So the first thing you do is start the automation when the tag AW-RC is added, or whatever you set the default tag to be. Next, subscribe them to a list called abandoned cart, wait an hour, and then send your abandoned cart email, something like, hey, did life get in the way? Now, to prevent this email from getting sent to people who actually did complete their purchase, we have a second automation which goes out like this. So we'll go back to automations. We have this email automation, which I like to call the sort of welcome and wow. And so this is the tag ActiveWoo is added. And the first thing that we do is we remove the AW-RC tag. And for me, I only sell people one product, and so it's unlikely that somebody comes back through my cart a second time after making a purchase. But if it wouldn't be a bad idea, honestly, to also remove the ActiveWoo tag as well. And for me, ActiveWoo is both my default tag, but is also the tag when someone purchases ActiveWoo. I apply the SKU. Excuse me, the SKU for the ActiveWoo product is ActiveWoo. So that's what starts this automation. The point being is, if you're going to use something like your default, so I could also use, let's say, my customer tag. So if you're going to use your default tag, which is by default, I mean over here in your main settings, your default tag. So let's say that customer was the one we wanted to use, and actually I would recommend that you set it up this way. And the first thing that you want to do actually is remove that customer tag either here or at the end. So I'm going to do it at the end and I'll explain why. So anyway, we would start with something like the customer tag. Your default tag here is going to start automation. The first thing it's going to do is remove the AWRC tag. Then it's going to exit the abandoned cart automation, so it's going to prevent them from getting that email. It's going to remove them from the abandoned cart list. It's going to subscribe them to our customers list. It's going to send them the welcome email. And then what we might do here as a final step is to remove, so in contacts, remove tag, and then here we could remove that same customer tag. And the reason why we would remove the customer tag at the end is so that the next time this person purchases, that customer tag can get re-added, which will restart them on this same journey. Because again, if they purchase something from us once successfully, then they come back to the store, they will also restart this Recover Cart campaign. So we want to make sure that we can rerun them through this same process. Or you could use sort of a different style setup for this as well. I might make some additional videos in the future on how to create different, we call this kind of a loop, because we want this contact to kind of come looping through here. Now if you have a first-time email, which is welcome to our tribe, thank you for becoming a customer, obviously you don't want to send that to somebody on their second, third, and fourth purchase. So again, that's where things like the advanced features of checking how many purchases they have, because here you could put in a conditions in a workflow, right? If their so here's where you would do something like if their contact details, and you would select their total number of purchases is greater than equal to or less than or equal to 1, send them the welcome email for the first time. Otherwise, send them the second time purchaser, third time purchaser, fourth time purchaser. You can use that custom field to run this as a loop and then send one of a handful of different emails depending on how many times they've actually been, how many purchases they've actually made. The key thing though is to remember, if you're going to use a loop, meaning this is a flow that I want a contact to be able to go through multiple times, then whatever tag starts the loop, so in this case if we wanted to make it actually match mine, it would look more like this. So if ActiveWoo is the tag being used to start this, then the customer gets this tag, it does these actions, then at the end it removes that tag, so the next time they purchase, this tag can be applied again. It can restart them and it can rerun the same sequence again, remove them from the abandoned cart and so forth. So that's how you set up a sequence or an automation in ActiveCampaign to work in conjunction with something like the Recover Cart. Okay, so that concludes the portion of all of the different ActiveWoo features using ActiveWoo standalone with just WooCommerce. Now, there's additional features if you use any of the other WooCommerce extensions that ActiveWoo integrates with. The first one that most people are using is the WooCommerce subscriptions extension. So we're going to take a look at that now. If you have the WooCommerce subscriptions extension, then a new checkbox will be added to your main ActiveCampaign WooCommerce tab, which is have ActiveWoo sync subscription events. And by default, this will be checked either if you have this extension already installed, or if you install it as soon as you do, then this will be here and it will be checked by default. So let's go ahead, and I've set up a subscription which is $1 a day for 2 days and a $1 sign up fee. So we'll make a purchase here and I'll show you the different tags that get assigned. Alright, so we've got this now set up just to use Stripe in a sandbox mode. So that is the fake number that you use. And we'll go ahead and get this subscription set up. Alright, so let's check out our new customer here. Okay, so remember I've left the cart recovery enabled, so cart recovery URL is still here and the cart recovery tags are here, but also because the purchase was completed, the customer and the product purchased and that I was subscribed via checkout have all also been applied. So at this point, the only thing that we need to know is that a subscription product was purchased, and so that is the tag that has been applied here. Now if we look into the subscriptions records in ActiveCampaign, we can check out this subscription. And you can see that just like with the orders, we now also have a sync status here that this has been synced to contact ID here. Alright, so next up, we sync different tags depending on the events of, or subscription events as they were. So one of the subscription events is that a customer or the admin might suspend a subscription. So a suspended subscription is usually one where the user asks that they not be billed. They don't want to cancel their subscription completely, but they want to just suspend it for a period of time. So we'll go ahead and click suspend here, and you'll see that that has now been, the status is now on hold. ActiveWoo correspondingly applies a tag which is comprised of the SKU of the product, which in this case was AW-SUB. Remember, from if you've been watching from the beginning of this training video, I also have the product SKU prefix here, so product dash, but the actual SKU of the product was AW-SUB. So AW-SUB, SUSP is the tag that is applied whenever the whenever the subscription goes to the on hold status. And that is described a little bit down here, that when the product has gone to whatever is always the SKU and then one of the following, it's SUSP or CANC. And it really pays to test something out completely before you really deploy this. There are a lot of different settings for subscriptions, including free trial periods, people who have subscriptions that never end versus people who are using subscriptions like a payment plan. So really every setup is slightly different, and it is really, really important that you test everything out. I suggest that you do something like if you have a monthly subscription, set something up as a daily subscription and let it run a couple days with some different use cases, like here's a customer canceling, here's the admin canceling, here's them reactivating, here's them getting a refund, and just make sure that everything is, all the tags flow and either create the activity that you want or don't. So aside from on hold, another one that we can do is cancel. And so this one is now canceled. And the corresponding tag is AW-SUP CANC for having been canceled. And so that is the setup with WooCommerce and the subscription extension. The next plugin that ActiveWoo integrates with is the WooCommerce Checkout Fields Editor extension. And this is where you can add additional fields to the checkout field, and if you want to also sync those fields into customer fields, then you can do so using the Checkout Fields Editor and the integration with ActiveWoo. So first you have to install the Checkout Fields Editor, and you'll notice now that there is also in the Settings Integrations tab on the main is that you can have ActiveWoo sync custom checkout fields, and then by default this will also be checked for you as soon as you install, or if you already have the checkout fields plugin installed, this will be checked for you. Either way, using this gets slightly tricky to the degree that in order to add the custom checkout fields as custom fields to your ActiveCampaign, you have to do things in the right order, which is, let's create our test field first. So we're going to create a test field, and we'll just leave it as a normal text field. And let's click Save Changes. Okay, so now we've got our test field has been added. So let's check it and enable it. And let's make sure that it's now showing up on our checkout page. So let's add something back to our cart here. Okay, here it is. So we've got our new test field added to the checkout. But if we look into our ActiveCampaign, this field has not yet been added as a custom field, which is ready to receive data that comes in. So in order to set that up, what we need to do once we've added or done any changes to our custom fields checkout editor, so we can add or remove or update whatever fields we want here. Once that's done, it's important to then go back to Settings and then to the Integrations tab. Make sure that the Sync Custom Fields is checked and then hit Save Changes. What this is going to do is it's going to revisit any custom checkout fields that you've created. It's going to add those as fields to your ActiveCampaign. See, test field has now been added. So anytime anyone checks out with something in that test field filled in, test hi, you can now see that this test field, what was entered at the time of checkout, is now saved onto this field. And once again, remember that this is on a per purchase basis, so that if the same customer using the same email comes through and adds some new value here, then whatever was here is going to be erased, and whatever was newly entered here is what will be saved. So that does it for now. I know it's been quite a long checkout. Hopefully you used the time markers below this video to skip ahead to any section that you needed to see. But thank you so much for being a customer. Also, there is a comment section below this video. If you have questions, please ask them there, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you. Thank you again so much for being an ActiveWoo customer.